Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me in another episode of The Art of Comic Writing. I'm your host, Jorge Medina. That's George with a J. And before we get to it, I will ask that you please subscribe, like, and even more importantly, share this video out to anyone who has ever attempted to write a comic, a book, a poem, because we talk about writing for all my literary lovers out there every week. Oh, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any of these informative shows. It is now time to thank the sponsor of today's show, and that is our friends at Gig. Do you have the next best selling comic book idea, but have no idea how to get started because you're an artist and not a writer, or vice versa? Then go to globalindiegroup.com and find exactly what you're looking for. Gig has a list of writers, artists, editors, colorists, letterers, even podcasts on the platform to help you bring that comic book to life. Sign up today to get started and make sure you provide the promo code WRITING at checkout. What are you waiting for? Go to globalindiegroup.com today and get started on the next best-selling comic book you've been wanting to create. All right. Now, I know what you're thinking. It seems like every time you tune into the show, while the topic may seem harmless, somehow the subject turns to how incredibly difficult it is to succeed at this writing thing. Well, tonight, kids, that mantra continues. I'm joking. Well, kind of. Hey, it's not all terrible, okay? There's a lot of fun to be had creating the funny books we love. I just want this platform, okay, to be a cautionary tale and to give you perspective. Listen, creating books is fun and it's something you have to love in order to keep doing it. There's got to be a lot of passion, but you also have to be ready to do the work. My guest this week has a lot of fun and puts in a lot of work. He will tell us how he manages both and what is the hardest part of it all. Plus, we're going to be giving him a writing prompt as a parting gift, like I like to do on the show. Okay, and without further ado, I'd like you all to sit back behind that screen and put your hands together for a Full Sail alumni, UX designer, one-fourth of the quartet that makes up the dope podcast Nerds of the Round, which goes live every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I watch religiously. He is also the creator of a comic I highly recommend, Koncrete Kombat. Please welcome the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Sebastian Bonet.
I'm looking for this myth and legend. I'm still looking around for him.
What I heard. It's just what I heard. Rumor has it. Rumor has
Rumor
it.
has it.
Rumor has it, my brother.
What's up,
Rumor has it.
George?
What's going on, my brother? Listen, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. I really, really appreciate you. Thank you very much, sir.
Oh, look, congratulations, man.
Yeah, no, man. Hey, listen, it's you know what it is. Okay, so and I've said this spiel on other shows, but the reason for this show and the reason why it's called the art of comic book writing is because I feel like when you're an artist, right, you have the luxury of displaying your pages on the screen and people can see your talent. They can see it, right? When you're the writer, you're kind of like that unsung hero that kind of sits behind the scenes and not too many people know what you're doing. In this particular case, you happen to do both. So you are a storyteller. You're just writing in the form of art of comic writing. So we're going to be talking about creating, writing, storytelling and stuff like that. I have a set of questions that I prepared for you. We're going to ask those questions. You're going to answer those questions. At the end of the show, which I like to do, is I will give you a writing prompt, which you can do after the show, obviously, when the show ends. And if you feel like, hey, this is dope, man, I want to send it to George, email it to me and I will post it on my website on
Ooh,
getyourmeds.com. Yeah,
love it.
yeah, yeah. So that's what we're gonna rock out. That's what we're gonna rock out. But why don't we get started with the very first question, Sebastian?
Go ahead,
As an
shoot,
artist,
shoot it, shoot it,
as an
shoot.
artist, you ready?
Yeah.
As an artist, when you're putting together a story, okay, you're sitting there, you're putting together the story. Do you write dialogue, descriptions, or is it always, or you always start with the art? Well, how do you do it? And I know you're an artist, so it may be a tricky question, but
I mean, no, I guess for everybody it's different. For me, it's just I have a method of madness.
mm,
So it really depends on the story, the arc that I'm writing. Like sometimes I got to get the art out there. Like for Concrete Combat, for example, when that started, it was the art. It was a design of a poster I wanted to do when I first debuted on the comic
mm,
scene. For Dead Planet, which is being renamed to Pandora Complex. That was just for my love for horror movies, and I was just writing that down, and that was all I that was all just writing before even the dialogue and the art. It was just writing down the bullet points of what I wanted to do.
Interesting.
An unreleased story, Lords of New York, which I released on Patreon, the unreleased comic. It's so Patreon readers get to see that. That was more of like a combination of dialogue and bullet points. So
Hmm.
it's like whenever I think of like a good line, like, oh, this is a good dialogue, I'm just going to write that down. I'll put it there. So it's like, are you familiar with Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Yeah, yeah, the show.
So there's the whole Pepe Sylvia episode with Charlie Day. He has like the whole thing, like the map and then the shoestring and all that. That really is kind of like my method of madness, where it's like, okay, I got the art here, I got the dialogue here, I got these bullet points here, and
Wow.
so it's like what I started to do is I've been using a lot of Google Docs, and I've been putting together, like for Concrete Combat, I have a whole master doc. I have
Jesus.
bullet points where I want to hit for the characters. Then I have the art there linked, and I'm so it's helped to kind of flesh out more this world from when it first started. And then I'm also building the world around it. I'm going with the design of designing a whole world map where I want to create the sandbox for people to come in and come play with it too. So
Yeah.
it's a method of madness for me.
Yeah, dude, like it really is, and it is interesting because you when you speak to different creators and different writers, everybody's got their own method, and like you call it, your method of madness. And but to me, as long as you finish it,
Yeah.
that's what's important to me. I don't care how you get there. It's a matter of finishing. And I think that, and it goes into kind of like the second question, which I had, which I think you might have answered pretty much, is I was going to read you three options, right? And you pick the one that best describes how you create. And for those watching, think about this. Okay, so three options. Which is the best description of how you create? One is I'm all over the place. I world build as I go.
Hmm.
Two is I plan everything. Story Bible, crazy research, and then the script. So the script is the final thing you do. Or it's all in my head. In other words, you go straight to the script or you go straight to the art. I think I know the answer, but I'll let
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah. No, I mean
expand on that.
I've kind of relied more now, as time has gone by, onto building a Bible and a context of things. So it's both the Bible and the design. The Bible allows me to write down stuff that, because there'll be times where, and I'm pretty sure this has happened to you, where you would think of stuff, try to do all in your head,
Hmm.
but then you forget things. And I was like, oh, this method doesn't work. And I used to do it, but it doesn't work.
Right.
I'm just like, damn, I'm forgetting this. It was just a really juicy nugget.
Yes.
So what I do is in the Bible, if I come up with like a dialogue, a line, or how I want this part to go, I'll put it in the Bible. And the Bible's always getting updated. That's all with text stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
But as far as it goes for the look of the character, I always want to get the design of the character to fit one that's in this world, and two, the dialogue of that character of who they are. Like, keeping a Bible, I recommend to some people. Don't use the top of your head. I know some people they work that way,
Yeah, they do.
but it's always good to have a trusty Bible that you could go back to, because if you write it down, it's there. And if you're the artist, and or you're an artist and a writer at the same time, don't mess with the design and all that of the characters. Sometimes do not rely on that first design of that character, because with the dialogue that may end up changing, and it's actually putting the dialogue, working with the design side by side as an artist.
Yeah.
It's allowed me to really feel and deep dive into these characters even more. It's helped out to flesh out their look even more.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think that yes, a lot of people do rely on the whole thing of like it's in my head, it's in my head.
Yeah.
I know exactly what I'm doing because it's all in my head. And I would suggest to those people just we all have smartphones with memo recorders. Record whatever you thought at that moment in that memo recorder because with all the things going on, whatever you thought was dope at the time, by the time you put it, you actually go to create it, may completely have changed from that dope idea you thought you had at the moment.
Look
You
at that.
see what I'm
Look at that.
saying?
This is
Yes.
stuff that hasn't even made it into the Bible, and this is
Yes.
stuff that I
See,
start to think about and everything.
I
So
do the
while I'm
same
sitting
thing.
somewhere, I just write it
Mhm.
down, character names,
Yeah.
designs,
Yeah. Put it down.
places, and all. It's because I've had that issue where I would think of something, I'm like, oh, I'll wait till I get home, and then all of a sudden a bunch of stuff happens. I'm like, damn, what was that
Exactly.
idea I had?
It's
I should have
done.
wrote it down. That happened a lot when I was doing
Yes.
Dead Planet, and that's when I did Lords of New York. I started bullet pointing everything. Again, it's good to write your stuff down. You don't know when you're going to go back to revisit it. Be like, okay, this idea didn't work for here. I could
Right.
pull it for this story.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I know that, and you mentioned you have a Patreon, and for those watching, that will be in the show notes as well. So check out the show notes, and you're going to see Sebastian's Patreon. Make sure you sign up for it. But I know that you have other stories that you're working on. Do you ever? And I know that we live in an era of, like, Marvel and and Star Wars, and Disney is doing all of these different properties and stuff like that, where some things intertwine and go to others. Are you big on Easter eggs within your own stories?
If you're having fun with it, I mean, there are two type of Easter eggs I like. One is something that helps progress the story, and then another one that, like for example, in the first issue of Concrete Combat, some of my friends' characters make little cameo appearances,
Mm.
which I think is fun. I mean, it's kind of a
Oh,
nod to like other creators and everything out there. I've talked of asking like to borrow Wonder Duck just to
yeah.
have him like on the ad on, cause I'm hoping by then by the chapter 3 is out, I have this idea of in the scene, this whole store scene where there's a comic shop, so I'm saving Wonder Duck for that. um, I
That's
gave a
awesome, man. Go for it.
that's what I do is like I gave a nod to visual novel games in chapter 2 part 2 of this, where it's like I have them up just as ads, which again help to flesh out the world. I send it to one of the creators, and they're like, yeah, no, it just gives it that organic feeling the way you labeled it and you did it and everything. I love it. And I thought that that was cool. And then one of the Easter eggs I did is that, and again, spoiler territory, the main antagonist, one of the main antagonists actually makes a secret cameo appearance in chapter 1, in one of the scenes, and so if you're paying attention, you'll see that character
Cool.
there, and she becomes like a big player too in the whole series, which is pretty cool. And again, I'm a fan of Easter eggs. It pays nods to a lot of stuff to like fans. Like it gives you like those lot of little teases. Some Easter eggs help further stories. Some Easter eggs
Right.
are just fun that it's there, and it's just when, and especially when they're done right.
But
Yeah.
here's a fun one for you, Sebastian. If someone, anyone, let's say a genie or something, with the power to make you a better writer slash storyteller artist, right, said to you, I will make you a better artist, writer, creator, whatever. But you have to give one thing up. What is the one thing that you give up?
The one thing I'll give is my foot. Nah. I think I've kind of given it up already to kind of work on my craft.
Yeah.
Has been gaming. I
You're a
used
big
to
gamer.
game. Yeah, I used to game a lot, like into the wee hours of the night. It's been Call of Duty,
Damn.
Halo. Um, and what I did is that I wanted to come out with this series, so I really wanted to work on more of my art, one of more of my stories. So all the time that I was spending on gaming, I
Mhm.
actually just start to put it towards developing the story, developing the world, and just developing the designs for these characters. There are times I can go wee hours into the night and just draw. So like the times again that would have spent on my Xbox playing some of my games like Borderlands and all that. Um, I just like, you know what? No, I really want to come out with the story. I really want to work on these characters. I want to deliver something to people. And just get something out there and transport people into this world, like kind of like how video games did for me. It transported me into a different world. I'm hoping that I can get the concrete combat and the world around it out there where enough people want to see it eventually as an animation in a game. Which is one of my end goals. Like I think it would be cool to create a sandbox world to immerse people into this. And it's just been fun. So that's the one thing I'll sacrifice is my gaming.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how addictive that can get, huh? Like,
Yeah,
and you forget how much time you can lose within that world of
bro.
gaming.
Um, Like it so it's funny when I used to live with my roommate, we would game. So I would get home, eat
Damn.
dinner, and then get on the Xbox and be gaming for like the next 4 or 5 hours, sometimes the wee hours of the night. And it was just like it was like another full-time job. And this is like at the same time, this was before me and my wife got married and together. And then I still was gaming because my wife she is a big time gamer too, is World of
Oh,
Warcraft.
okay.
She has spent time on that. But And I started realizing I was like, damn, like I'm spending a lot of time gaming, and it's nothing against anybody who's gaming a lot. I love to play a game and everything. I think I've replaced some of my gaming with Dungeons and Dragons because I help with the Dungeons and Dragons podcast, which again is still doing some creative stuff because Dungeons and Dragons has help with writing too.
Right.
I just like,
Right.
I
Yeah.
had to
Yeah.
put down I really put down the control, and that's the one thing I sacrificed to make me a better writer and artist.
Yeah, dude. Hey, that's a big sacrifice when that's all you were used to doing. But I guess, listen, if you want to get better at something, and in this case, your craft of creating, of drawing, you have to give some of that stuff up because it's just not enough time in the day, bro. There's just
Yeah.
not enough time in the day to do it all.
And my advice to people too is don't get into comics if you think you're gonna make a lot of money. At the
Mm,
end of the day, you gotta get into love with it.
yeah.
And that's one thing I learned from Mark and Alex back when I got to meet them, Wayward Raven, and it's just been that sacrifice is something I'm willing to do because I love what I'm creating. I love what I'm
Yeah.
putting out there, and I just get to enjoy it if it's just even just one person who's like, "Yo, this is so dope." I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I've at least changed one person's life. I gave them something that they, enjoy and everything, and characters that they love.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, okay, so this leads me right into, the question of the night, the topic of the day, right? Why is comic book writing or creating so hard? And if it is, what is it that makes it the most difficult? What is the most difficult part for you? And if it isn't hard, then how the heck do you make it so easy? You know what I mean? So what's your take on
Comic book writing is hard because
it?
I remember looking up books. Everyone has a different approach. There is not
Yeah,
one approach to writing comics. You know
yeah,
this,
yeah,
where some people be like, okay, panel here, blah 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 blah, panel here, and even like you can take a comic book writing class, but sometimes too you have to find your style
hmm,
because you can do so many different people's style. You can do, but if you can't find the easiest style for you that's comfortable for you,
yeah,
writing a comic book script is going to feel like a slog. I had to realize that for me too. I had to write, like, if I'm writing for me, um yeah, it's like you can learn as much as you want from writing, but if you don't find a writing style that fits you or get comfortable, it's going to be hard to write something.
yeah,
Like, if you're not used to screenplay writing, which I was doing screenplay writing. I transferred some of my scripts into screenplay writing. It's a good thing to learn that tool, but screenplay writing is hard because the way you have to break it down, such as interior, exterior, this, and that. It's different when you're doing comic book writing because all you have to do is communicate to the artist, okay, I want this to be established in this panel, but you also got to leave room where the dialogue balloons, the art, and these are things you have to think about when you're writing. Like, how much is the dialogue balloon going to cover that art?
yeah. I think a lot of when it comes to comic book writing, there are a lot of things that you have to take into consideration, right? You have to talk,
Hmm.
you talk about. I mean, and this is storytelling in general, right? The pacing and plots
Yeah,
and all that other stuff. But when it comes to comic book writing, you're talking about page turns, right? And you
yeah,
want to make sure that where you and that whatever's happening on that odd even page or that even page, when you turn it over, there's a reveal. So you constantly have to be thinking in terms like that. And the other thing is, I think, and you're an artist, so I'm sure you maybe received scripts from a writer who has more than one action happening in one panel, and it's
hmm,
impossible for somebody to be picking up the phone and maybe then he punches somebody in the face. You got to put that phone down before you punch somebody else in the face because a lot of people think in movies rather than still images. And
yeah,
so breaking yourself away from that thinking is what makes that writing harder because not more than one thing can happen in one panel. You got to decide what's going to happen in that panel, and that's what's getting drawn in that panel. Move on to the next. So
exactly.
there are a lot of things that go into the art of it of writing a comic book. And I think and to your point, and that's a great point. Find your style.
Hmm.
What's going to be easy for you? Yeah, no, it's interesting, man. It's very interesting. I think it was who was it? It was one of the big names at Marvel who said everybody talks about the two types of writing, right? There's the
Yeah,
Marvel way and the DC way, right? Marvel way, Stanley used to just write something on a page, said this was going to happen on
it was
that
one
page.
page.
You figure it out, right? You figure it out. We'll put the dialogue in later.
The whole comic was
DC,
one page.
yeah, DC is for panel one, panel two, panel three,
Hmm.
panel four, and what this person and his point was, yeah, the Marvel way works if your artist knows sequential art and he's a
Yep.
genius at sequential art. Then that works. If he doesn't know that, it's not going to work. You know what I mean? The DC style is going to work if that writer is a great writer. If he's not a great writer, that's not going to work. So you really do have to know your craft in order for either one of those methods to kind of work.
Yeah,
What do
and
you think?
it's
What do you think about that?
no, you're right because it's like this. You have to know how to label out your panels because it comes down to knowing how your artist works. And I would say too, artists should know how writers work. I mean, I feel like I feel like writers should learn a little bit about the art process this way, and then also too, some artists should learn about the writer's process because this way it gets you to understand each other. Because you can have a particular writing style, but then it you may love this artist's work, but their art may not fit your writing style.
Right.
And it's the
Right.
same thing as an artist. You have to understand your art style may not fit that writer's style. Like if they're very panel heavy and you can't fit a lot of stuff into that panel
Right.
that they're
Right.
looking for, and you can make a horrible book, and it's going to create that friction. The other
Mhm.
thing too is that as a team, if you're going in there as an artist and writer to create this comic, you have to be open to with criticism with each other
Yeah.
because like the artist has to send notes like, listen, I don't think this will work in this panel, and you have to understand to let send those notes back to the writer. The writer also can send like, hey, can we, is it possible, and just have that open dialogue. Don't fight out. It's you're creating something, and the thing is that you have to think about this. How does that guide your readers through the page?
Yeah.
The words may make sense to the writer, the art may make sense to the artist, but if it doesn't make sense to the reader
Yeah.
who is picking up that book, and even if it's like a web comic, same thing. You're getting them to scroll through. You have to get guide their eye. So example is how I try to write and how I try to lay out my panels. It's to make it simple so that my wife can understand on where to go through because that was one of her major complaints when she looked at comics. She didn't know where to go to,
Right.
what was
What's
the next thing
next?
to read.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I want to put that style together where it's easy for you to flow, where you're being guided, where one, the art, you love the art, it's going to get you like, oh, this is a great panel to look at. It gets your eye to move around. But two, the way how the words and the dialogue is set up, that it gets you to also move too. So you know what panel to go to. You have this whole like direction to follow and not get lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what you have to consider as a writer and an artist is how is your reader going to see it? Because
Right.
if they
Right.
don't get it, it's going to be it's not going to do well. But if they I once remember I read somewhere someone was like, "Which would you rather have? Great art and a bad comic, or a bad art and a great comic?" And like there are a lot of people who are like great writers, but the artist is like, "Oh, well, they're not any like they're not Jim Lee or anything like that." But the artist did their job with the sequentials. They got you to follow the story. Then there are artists who have gone out there who've worked on books that you're just lost and you don't know where the story is going. And again, that comes with the writer and artist team working together. That's why I think, comics can be easy, but it can be hard. And if
Yeah.
you don't understand where your readers, and take that criticism too, like do a test read, print the
Mhm.
book, do a test read, let some people read it, and then take the feedback,
Yeah. Yeah.
go right back out there and fix it.
Yeah, no, I think that one of the major, once you, like you said, let's say, for example, you wrote something, your artist drew it, and it's out before you even letter it. That whoever picks up that book should know what's happening on that page without having to read anything on that page. And now you know you have a great book because the dialogue is great, and that's the icing on the cake, right? And that's gonna, it's gonna build the characters. But when that person is looking at that page, if they can't follow it, and the words are, imagine the words are in it, that's what's going to help them out, but if they can't follow it without the words, then that page doesn't work, and it has to
Hmm.
be redesigned because you are designing pages as an artist, and even as a writer, if you know what you're doing, you're going to be able to guide your give your artist the blueprint to give you a good looking page. If you don't know what you're doing, now the onus falls on the artist. And if you don't have an artist who's strong in sequential art, because you may be able to save them just by what you're writing, but if the artist doesn't know how to do that, and and as an artist in a comic book, you should know sequential art. That is,
Hmm.
you have to know that. That's like knowing perspective, anatomy, sequential art. If you're drawing comics, you need to know all those things. But if you find an artist who doesn't know those things, the writer can help them out in that area, and to a certain extent, I mean, within reason, within
I would
reason.
go the easiest way to learn sequential art. Just do one of the because again, you're right, you definitely as an artist you have to know how to do sequential storytelling. Practice one storyboarding. Two, do each individual image like panel as an individual image, and then resize it. This way, it just makes it easier for you to do it. Because at the end of the day, it's your storytelling. The
Mhm.
writer, it's to understand that you also have to know your artist's weaknesses and strengths. If they're really weak at telling an action scene, then that might not be one the artist you want to do as for an action scene, or two, maybe they're just better for another project, or three, maybe simplify that scene. Um, they're just you have to understand each other's strengths and weaknesses, because if you do that, you're going to make a better comic visually
Yeah,
for people to follow. Because I mean, I don't know if you can answer this, but 90% of the time as a writer, you're writing. It's not the dialogue you're writing. You're also laying out, setting up
yeah.
the scene. Kind of
Hmm.
like when you're writing a Hollywood script, you're
Right,
setting up the scene that the crew is setting up.
right.
The dialogue then comes next, because like you'll be surprised like how much dialogue goes into a page. It's like, yeah, okay, I spent this whole time for this cool line, but you wrote that cool line, but you didn't write down how the whole scene leads up to that cool line.
Right, right, right.
It's like, wow, we get there. And so
Yeah, yeah,
it could be hard, but at the same time, once you start to figure it out, it gets easy. Once you figure out your style, once you figure out each other's weaknesses and strengths, you start to build off on that. Start to challenge yourselves. And I mean, I've seen just like I said, I've picked up a lot of indie books. I try to learn from other indie creators as well, like what worked, what didn't work, what did I didn't like, what I liked, and then try to also see how people like how other people like engage with comics and everything, like what they like, what they didn't like, and just try to make it easy. Like I said, I use my wife as a tool, as a tool, as a willing subject of getting her to understand how to read comics.
yeah. Willing subject. That's right. That's right. Oh man, no, that's good, man. That's good. All right. So, final question. Here's my bonus question to you. What's your favorite YouTube channel, and why is it Get Your Meds?
Well, that's my favorite YouTube channel is Get Your Meds. Why? Because that guy letters my stuff right there.
Oh man,
No,
dude, listen, I'm having a blast, bro. Like, and I know that it's been a blast. It's been a blast.
no, I
Concrete
think.
Combat is a great story. I'm telling you, people need to pick that up. Go to the show notes. All that information is in there. It's an incredible story, man. You're doing a great job with that.
Thank you.
All right, well, listen. Now we get to the part of this show where I give you a writing prompt. Now, for those watching, if you want to get down with this prompt, write it down. And if you guys are you feel, oh man, this is great, I love what I did, email it to me. My email will be in the show notes, and I'll post it on my website on getyourmeds.com. So the writing prompt for tonight is: four friends enter a pool hall. That's it. You do what you got to do. You have on your spare time, Seabass, you have 15 minutes to spare. You can either write it down or you can sketch something out. If you love it, email it to me. I'll post it on my website if it's okay with you. And we'll go from there, man. I
Well,
thought
I gotta
it'd be
tell
kind
you, I
of
got
fun.
inspiration for that one, but I'll tell you off air.
All right. Yeah, see, there you go. It sparked it. It sparked the inspo already, man. Dude, thank you so much for coming on,
Thank you
Seabass.
for having
And
me,
uh,
bro.
and for those watching, make sure that you check the show notes. Nerds of the Round comes on Tuesday nights, like I told you at the beginning. Concrete Combat is out right now on his Patreon. Thank you, my friend. And I'll see you on Tuesdays, brother.
See you on Tuesdays.
Peace. Oh man. And that, my friends, was Mr. Sebastian Bonet. What do you guys think? Do you guys have a Bible when you're writing your stories? Or do you have it all up here? Or what is your method? What is your method of writing? And do you find comic book writing is hard? Let me know. Put it in the comments below. Thank you, Sebastian, for joining me and giving us a little bit of insight on the topic. That was awesome as always. And don't forget, guys, if you want to get down with the writing prompt, for friends enter a pool hall, do that. Do that. Write that up. 15 minutes. Sit down, write the scene, send it up to me. My email's in the show notes below. And if you want me to post it on my website, I will. If you don't, then I won't. It's all up to you. But yes, that is the prompt. That was my guest. And next week, my guest will be JD Rosario. JD Rosario will be on the show next week, talking shop with me once again. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to share the video. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you know when the shows are going on. And one last thing, go to getyourmeds.com. Pick up some swag. The Adventures of Wonder Dog t-shirts are on there. The Adventures of Wonder Dog comic is on there, as well as my Rust 5377 comic book, and more stuff will be coming on the website as well. So make sure you go there, follow me on social media, but most importantly, subscribe to the channel. And don't forget, keep writing. Peace.